Hello, and welcome to another episode of Revolutionaries in History. I'm your host, Adam Brown, and today we're talking about Napoleon Bonaparte. Revolutionary, military genius, emperor.
Born in 1769 to an impoverished family of Corsican nobles, Napoleon Bonaparte was the second of 8 children. As an Italian child, he knew little French, which did not help when his home was transferred to French territory. Napoleon was a mean, sickly child, with a head so large that it threw him off balance when he walked. In January 1779, when he was 10, he went to school in mainland France, and by May, he was specialized in military school. Napoleon didn't really like his new school, and he would often throw tantrums when he didn't get his way. However, this gave him the determination he would need in order to become the military genius he's known for.
Napoleon was now entrenched in the military life of a general, and by the time he was 26, he was commander-in-chief of the French army. It was at this time he gathered 41,000 troops and marched off towards the Austrian forces in northern Italy. Residents of this land desperately needed change as they longed for the same effects as the revolutions in France had. And thus began the Napoleonic Wars, with the War of the First Coalition.
The War of the First Coalition was an attempt by the royal powers of Europe to contain the ever-increasing influential revolutionary France. On the one side, there was Austria, Great Britain, the French Royalists, Spain, Portugal, Sardinia, Italy, the Ottoman Empire, and the Dutch Republic. And on the other side was Napoleon leading France. By the end, however, Spain was allied with France. Napoleon captured most of Italy, and the Dutch Republic ran away at the sight of Napoleon's army, thus became Batavian Republic.
The War of the First Coalition has ended in 1797. Only 2 years later, the powers of Europe decided to try again for another 3-year coalition against Napoleon's forces. However, with all of France, Spain, Poland, Denmark, Norway, and whatever land Napoleon conquered during the War of the First Coalition behind Napoleon, the attempts of Austria, Great Britain, Russia, the French Royalists, Portugal, Naples, and the Ottoman Empire looked futile. However, try they did. This didn't end well, and by the end of the Third Coalition in 1806, the Holy Roman Empire was no more, and Napoleon's forces completely humbled the Austrian Empire.
The victories in the War of the Third Coalition were so great that Napoleon commissioned the famed Arc de Triomphe to commemorate the event in 1804. However, Napoleon's police force in France discovered a plot to assassinate Napoleon with the help of Duke of Enghien. The Duke was kidnapped by Napoleon, put on trial twice, and executed. This event was enough for him to prove to the people that they needed to bring back a hereditary monarch in France. On December 2nd, 1804, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France, and then crowned Josephine, his wife, Empress. Then, in May of the next year, he crowned himself King of Italy.
Ludwig van Beethoven, one of the most influential composers of that era, was one of Napoleon's biggest fans up until that point. That is, until he crowned himself emperor. The story goes that as soon as he was told what Napoleon did, he exclaimed,
"So he is no more than a common mortal. Now too he will tread underfoot all the rights of man, indulge only his ambition. Now he will think himself superior to all men, and become a tyrant." Beethoven went to the table, seized the top of the title page, tore it in half, and threw it to the floor. The page had to be recopied, and it was only now that the symphony received the title Sinfonia Eroica.
Napoleon's success couldn't last much longer. During the War of the Sixth Coalition in 1812, Napoleon waged war against Russia, but was defeated. The defeat was so great that his highest-ranking generals decided for him that he should abdicate the throne and was exiled in the island of Elba. His new lover helped him design an escape plan, and he found his way back to France. When he returned, he prepared for his last battle, the Battle of Waterloo.
Napoleon lost the battle and realized his long-term defeat. After formally giving up his title as emperor, he surrendered himself to Captain Maitland and was transported to England. There, he was exiled one last time to the island of St. Helena. He remained there until his death 6 years later, on May 5th, 1821.
He was buried in an unmarked grave on the island, but in 1861 his remains were transferred to France for a state funeral and burial in Paris's Les Invalides.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of Revolutionaries in History. I'm your host, Adam Brown, and good night.